Tonight I'm joined by what you would call a combative midfielder. Pierce Walsh joined Finn Harps in January 1995. He made 73 appearances for the club and he scored 12 goals. Pierce, great to have you on.
Thanks very much, Bartley. It's a pleasure to be on this channel. It's great, absolutely. It's an honour to be here talking to you here today.
When I was doing a bit of preparation, Pierce, I was looking at your previous clubs, and it looks like a roadmap for Ireland. You seem to have bounced all over the place, except you didn't go as far as Cork or Waterford. Did you have something against those people?
No, but there was an opportunity to go down to Cove at one stage, and to be honest, it was between Cove and Finn Harps at that particular time.
Right.
So it was, yeah. But yeah, you're right. I started my League of Ireland career with Home Farm at 17. That was my first appearance in the League of Ireland, and it was a match for Home Farm against Dundalk in Oriel Park. So what a place to go! And it was on a Wednesday evening, I'm sure, and the baptism of fire, playing against Dermot Keeley, Paddy Dunning, Tommy McConville, Martin Lawler, all them big boys back then that played against Celtic in the European Cup and all that. That was my first game. I went after Home Farm. I went to Bowes, and then after that, I was there for about 2.5 years, and then after that was a little bit of journey then around different clubs. Then UCD for 6 months, and then after the 6 months, UCD folded up. They were professional up after winning the FAI Cup. That's when I joined them, and within 6 months they folded up, and then I ended up going down to Longford with Bill Baxter for a couple of years, playing in the first division. Then went to Athlone Town. From Athlone Town, then it was up to Sligo Rovers. Dermot Keeley took me up to Sligo Rovers. I was up there for 4 years up in Sligo. After Sligo, then I went back to Longford Town. Dermot Keeley went back to Longford Town.
Yep.
I went back with Dermot to Longford. Dermot left Longford and he went to Dundalk. So I sort of was struggling to try and find a club at that particular time. I'm sure that was it. I went to Monaghan for a few months, and that was at the tail end of all their into the Premier League, and they were flying, and they had a new stadium, and things were looking great. When I joined Monaghan, everything had fizzled out. So I only lasted about 3 or 4 months there, and then I got in early January of that 90. Last club either. I had another stint down Kilkenny for a year and a half. About 7 or 8 clubs, partly.
Yeah, no, I was actually looking at it, and I think you're spot on your memory. There's nothing wrong with your memory anyway, Pierce. How many different managers would you have played under? I mean, you mentioned Dermot and Billy Baxter. Was Billy Young at Bohemians at that stage?
Young, yeah. It was the late David Cussy.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, Billy Young, Tony O'Neill, and Theo Dunn. Longford then. Athlone Town was Jimmy Jackson. Jimmy didn't last too long down there, and Porrick O'Connor, he took over there. After that, then Sligo, it was Dermot up to Sligo for 4 years. It was Dermot. Where does it go next? After Sligo.
Limerick. You were in Limerick for a while.
I was in Limerick partly for about 3 weeks. King was down there, but it was I never played a league game for them.
Right.
Yeah, it was just down there for a couple of weeks, just to trying to get fixed up with a club, and it wasn't right for me at that time anyway. For Limerick, yeah.
And the great Alfie Hale in Kilkenny as well.
Alfie Hale in Kilkenny, yeah. That was my last. I was practically finished after Finn Harps, really.
Yeah.
At that age, Bartley, I let's see, what age was I? Was like 30. I would have been 35, finishing at Finn Harps. So I was finished, let's say, from May, and I didn't. There was no pre-season, and no nothing. I got a phone call from Alfie Hale in Kilkenny in that September. Was I interested in coming back? I said, geez, I wasn't really fit or anything like that. So he hammered me for about 3 or 4 weeks. So I eventually signed for them for a year and a half, which brought me up then.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, 37, yeah.
Did you play in the Premier Division for them, or did they get promotion around that time that you were with them?
Yeah, but no, not when I was with. They were in the Premier League when they asked me to join.
Right.
Yeah, and they would have got relegated that year then and went down to the first division then. That was the year, Bartley, when the Harps played Kilkenny.
Oh, in the cup match, the FAI Cup match.
Play that never happened. I was with Kilkenny at that time. We drew 0-0 down in Kilkenny. I'm sure it was 0-0. Play was back up in Quinn Park.
That's right. It was to do with Michael Reddy was on the Ireland under-21 side at the time.
Yeah. And not only that, Alfie Hale had a very small squad down there.
Yeah.
On top of it, there were about 3 or 4 injuries, genuinely injuries. In the thing, now we probably only had 11 fit players to go up. In all circumstances, I was prepared to travel up because he would have been traveling from Waterford and I would have travelled from Dublin. I was prepared to travel up, all right, but they just said no. They weren't gonna let down. They weren't gonna back the FAI in the decision that they should fulfil the fixture, so they pulled out of it altogether.
Yeah, I remember it was a huge controversy at the time, and it rumbled on for a couple of weeks. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But ultimately, it was the FAI's decision, and there was nothing Harps could do. Their hands were tied as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. Harps got dressed, didn't they, and out onto the pitch and.
Oh yeah, they had to do that, all right.
Yeah, just as well. If we had gone up there, we probably would have got slaughtered.
Oh, you never know. How did you come about signing for Harps? How did that work out for you?
Oh, personally, that worked out. That gave me a brand new lease of life. Why Harps got in touch with me, I don't really know. I got a phone call probably on a January Monday evening from I think initially it was Donald Costigan.
Yes.
Lord of Mercy, Donald was a committee member there at the time. He was his Finn Harps big time, so he got in touch. I think he got in touch with me to say that Patsy McGowan was interested and wanted to know would I be interested in going up. So I said, by all means, yeah, absolutely. But Donald didn't live too far away from me. I was living in Malahide at the time, and Donald lived in Portmarnock.
Yeah.
So that's where the contact. That's where I got my first contact, and then I got talking to Patsy, and it took off from there. But it gave me a huge new lease of life for those 2.5 years that I was there with the Harps. Just everything got going again for me. I was delighted. Probably the best move out of me of all the clubs that I made was a big move for me. Not knowing it at the time, but I guess going to Bowes, when I went to Bowes when I was 19, I was too young. I had experience. It was a big club. There was big players there, Jackie Jemison and Gino Lawless, and I was coming in, and I just felt. So at that stage, but that experience stuck to me in the end. So going to Finn Harps at that particular move, like if I had it was either Cove or Finn Harps. I don't know what would have happened down there, but thank God I made the right decision anyway.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. I mean, Harps fans of a certain vintage would have very fond memories of you playing with Harps. I mean, you were a wholehearted player, decent midfielder who could score goals as well. And I think, as I said to you, you made 73 appearances with 12 goals from midfield. So, I mean, it probably was a good move both ways.
Yeah, it probably was. Harps' biggest target really was to get out of that first division. which was probably stuck there for 10 or 12 years, I think, Harps were. So with myself and Ronnie Murphy, Ronnie came the very same time I arrived at Finn Harps. It probably gave Finn Harps a little bit more experience, a bit more knowledge to the players that were up there, because even from the first 1 or 2 games, you knew between Patsy's team talks and fellas on the park, they were sort of a little bit disjointed, Bartley.
Yeah.
But they were looking for, Patsy looking for something down the middle, a good centre half, whatever, a midfielder, and maybe a good solid centre forward. You know, the spine of that team, because there was a lot of young fellas there, and myself and Monica, they were just running all over the place at that particular time. There was no particular shape to the team. So we sort of, I felt myself and Monica sort of helped, and probably I think Noel Melvin came along there as well, and a couple of others who brought a bit more experience to the side. You know, the only one I would look at experience at the time when I was there was Paul Hegarty, and he was just driving the team on himself. That was Paul.
And I think, yeah, what you're saying is probably borne out by, you know, the second season that you were there, we signed Jonathan Speake. And he was the man then that scored the goals that, you know, ultimately saw us get promotion. Or sorry, not that he scored all the goals that season, but certainly knocked in a huge amount of goals. I think it was 18 goals.
Yeah, what a player, Bartley. Absolutely. I'd stick him in my first 11 every day of the week. And I've played with a few good centre forwards, Jackie Jemison being one, Paul McGee. I don't know, remember Paul McGee. He was a Sligo man, played there. He played in England, played for Ireland.
He played for Finn Harps as well, Pierce.
Played for Finn Harps as well, did he?
Yeah.
I still put Johnny Speake ahead of everybody there, because of his sheer ability, and he could get a goal out of nothing.
Yeah.
And he run on a 6. He was a smashing player. And a lovely fella to go with it.
But even with Speaky, his hold-up play was something else. Like, he could knock the ball up to him. He was on his own. And by the time the midfield managed to join him, he'd managed to keep the ball and be able to lay it off. I mean, you know, Speaky's one of those rare players. He's just a fantastic class act.
Absolutely. 100% brilliant. It was a pleasure to play with him and have the experience to play with him. Brilliant it was.
Yeah. Your first season, we got to the playoffs, and you mentioned like it was the holy grail for Harps to get promotion. And we played Athlone Town. 3-0 in Balbafay. I think from memory serves me right, Charlie McGeever got sent off that night.
He got sent off that night, yeah. Oh, I think it was a 0-0 actually in that game.
Yeah, it was 0-0, yeah.
We played quite well, because seeing as they were a Premier side and we were a First Division side, we played very well against them, and really we had a couple of chances to score goals in Flint Park. But when the return leg was down in St. Mel's and Athlone, there was a huge amount of support for Finn Harps, which was incredible. That when we walked out onto the pitch to see, there must have been like 300 or 400 there. That's what it felt like, and they really gave us a huge boost at that time in St. Mel's. And as far as I can remember that game, you can't remember too many bits and pieces, but cheers, I thought we played them off the park. I just thought we battered Athlone in their own backyard. But unfortunately, we just didn't have Johnny Speake.
Yeah.
It's like Dotsy now. As much as we had Dotsy up there, but Dotsy probably couldn't just do it on his own. He needed help, and it just wasn't there at that particular time.
Yeah. And it went to penalties. Now, I know you were kind of the regular penalty taker in any event at Harps at the time, and you managed to put one away. And unfortunately, there was one man, Sean Barrett, who ultimately missed the penalty. What sort of a sickening feeling was that? Not just for Sean, obviously, because I mean, you know, you can't blame him. I mean, it was done over a season and whatever else. But how, you know, sickening a blow was it for everybody? I know Patsy was interviewed after the match, and you could see on RTE, he was absolutely sickened to the core. He couldn't believe it. He fully expected you to go to Athlone and win.
Yeah, and he'd every right to believe that, as much as we all believed that we could do, especially after the first leg, to go down there and beat them. Yeah, poor old Sean. Come here, somebody that happens to everybody at some stage in their career to miss a penalty at such a crucial moment in their careers. But you're right, it's you can't blame him on anything. It was all over the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just felt devastated in that dressing room. I don't know if you were ever in St. Mel's dressing rooms back in.
Oh, I was. It wasn't too big a place anyway.
Very small. I think only one person in to have a shower after the match. You had to wait your turn until there was more room. But it was a sad. Everybody was down, but they also we felt proud of ourselves in the sense that we gave a great display on the particular night. Our over the two legs that we I think we hit the bar. We could have hit the post during them games. We just didn't come away with it. The Finn Harps crowd and the people knew we gave it our all, and we knew we gave it our all. Yeah, we were very sad and disappointed, but we didn't give up hope, Bartley.
Yeah.
I've been with a couple of clubs with that were in that first division that got promoted, and one I was with Athlone where we won that league one year and got promoted, and I was with Sligo Rovers out of that first division and got promoted. So sort of I knew what it took to get out of that league. And it was just hard work and hard grit and just a little bit of quality in certain areas that was just required for that Finn Harps team. And thank God it happened the following year.
Yeah. Did the sort of the heartbreak and the loss felt after the Athlone game, did that make you want to stay at Harps the following season, or had you signed sort of a year and a half deal? Because I know you came in January.
Yeah, no, I signed a year and a half deal. Now that spurred me on, Bartley, because I sensed the potential in Finn Harps. Not that I could do anything about it, but you just sensed that there was something was happening here, because it was 2 years in a row you hit the bar, and as in the sense that you got into playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah, but you could sense that there was something growing there. You could feel it with the players that were coming along, and then. The following season, I think we kicked off really well in the first division. We won our first 4 games, I think, and we won a lot of pre-season games, and you just sense this could be our year.
And how much did the sacking of Patsy McGowan in December of that year affect you as players? I mean, obviously, Paul Hegarty, kind of came out and said he wasn't going to play for the club again. And I know there was a bit of a player delegation that went to the committee at the time and sort of said, look, guys, unless you reinstate Patsy, we're not going to play for the club. Now, that didn't happen, and you got on with the job in hand. But how much does that affect players? Patsy signed you, he signed Ronnie Murphy, signed Speaky, everything like that, and all of a sudden this guy who said, look, guys, you're the missing pieces in my team. How does that make you feel or react? Or
well, at that particular time, I think Patsy stepped over the line anyway, in the sense of poor old Patsy probably felt so frustrated with what was going on within the team that he couldn't translate what he wanted to do, and took his frustrations out on other people, including players and maybe officials and that sort of stuff. So he did step over the line. At the end of the day, myself, Ronnie Murphy, Noel Melvin, and whoever it was, we signed for Finn Harps. Yeah, Patsy played his part in selling the club to us, but at the end of the day, there was plenty of phone calls. There was plenty of phone calls going back and forth all the time about what to do and what not to do, and what we could do and what we couldn't do. And we got in touch with the PFA. Frank Gavin was the main man back then of the PFA. At the end of the day, we signed for Finn Harps, and that's who we were contracted to. So it was our obligation to play for Finn Harps and to keep going.
And Charlie McGeever obviously came in then and steadied the ship a little bit and sort of looked after it. And then your old buddy Dermot Keeley came along.
Dermot came along. Well, Charlie done a great job. In fact, Charlie came in, it was like a little bit of fresh air. I know Charlie was around the club a long time prior to that, but he came in and he just calmed things down a little bit, and he let us get out and play, and he said express your feelings and get out and play and enjoy it. And there was no shouting and there was no roar, and he was quite calm. Charlie, I enjoyed playing under Charlie. He was grand, not a bother on him. Yeah. And then Dermot came in then, and Dermot has the fist, an iron fist. He can growl. Been my third time under him. I've seen the froth coming out there McKeely's mouth many a time in the dressing room, Bartley at half time. And my days, you should never answer Dermot Keely back. Just take it on board and keep going. But Dermot's experience of management at that particular stage was well beyond, like between Rovers and Dundalk, he had loads of experience. So he knew what he was doing as well. So that's why we knew something was happening with the club. Things were building in the right way, and we were still in contention and hoping to win the league that year.
And then we went to Cove and got beaten 4-0, and we all thought it was gone.
Yeah, absolutely, including ourselves. Yeah, but I have a couple of stories about them in Cove, but I'll save that for another day. Johnny Quigg sees this; he'll know what I'm talking about.
I had Johnny Quigg on as well, so it's too late for me to go back and ask him about Cove anyway.
We thought it was gone after the Cove game.
Yeah.
I think Cove lost their next 2 games, I think.
And it was unbelievable because we went to Bray on a Sunday afternoon, and Bray were first division champions. They were getting the trophy that day. And the night before, Cove had got beaten. For the life of me, I think it might have been Longford, but I can't actually remember. And we were all standing on, the terraces in Carlisle grounds going, this is unbelievable. If we win here, we can get promotion, And, luckily enough, we did win 2-0 that day. And I think Speaky got another brace that day.
Great, that was a great win. Bray didn't want to get beaten at home and lifting the cup as champions. They didn't want to get beaten. It's a natural thing for a footballer. You don't want to lose your last game when you're collecting the trophy. You want to win it. And that's it. And our attitude going out onto that park that day, I'll never forget it, was, listen, they're not going to lift the trophy in front of us. We put it up to them. We won't make it at all for them. So it turned out great. And I remember that day. My legs were gone at the end of 90 minutes after that. But it was a fantastic win, and that's what set us up for the following week at home to Waterford.
Yeah, I think that that Bray game definitely proved that we were going to do it. I mean, there was no doubt walking up Navanny Street that night of the Waterford game, there was no way that any of us fans could contemplate that we weren't going to win the game. Was that sort of same feeling in the dressing room as well, Pierce?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There was a great buzz in the dressing room, knowing that there was a big crowd out there. So there was. And I remember Dermot Keely coming up to me saying, listen, after the 5 or 10 minutes, do something out there that lifts the crowd. He just said to me, just do something out there that lifts the crowd, that'll get us going, So I think their centre half had the ball, and I ended up tackling him, I think, and he went to throw a dig at me, and I think that the crowd, like in Finn Park, roared at him and sort of supported me rather than supporting him. So that got the crowd going, and that's what Keely was looking for. So the buzz was generated, was lifted, it set the tempo for the rest of the game then. So yeah, what a night that was, Bartley.
That was fantastic. I mean, even, we had the reunion there, and I hate to say it was 5 years ago that we had the reunion, and, the footage we showed, and it was just huge excitement. We'd spent 11 years in the first division.
Yeah, 11 years was an awful long time. Yeah, it was time to get out of that.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, you paid your dues to that league. Now push on. Absolutely, yeah.
That was it. And the next season we started in the Premier Division, and there was all the hoo-ha before the season started. How, again, I often wonder how that sort of stuff affects players, because I know the supporters, we're going to turn up anyway. We're supporters of the club, and that's it. But the players, does all the off the field stuff really affect you? Or, if a contract is put in front of you, you think, well, no, I like it here at Finn Harps, I'm going to sign this.
Yeah, I think it is. It's certainly 60 or 70% of your attitude is exactly what that is. The other distractions, the 30% of, I remember that particular time, it was even in the morning match, we had a pre-season friendly against Celtic.
That's right, yeah.
And that morning we weren't going up. Dermot Keely said, no, we're not going up, we're not travelling up. So there was a fair contingent from Dublin travelling at that particular time. I said, no, we're not travelling. And then by 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, it had all turned around and said, yeah, right, we're going. So from that point of view, it was a terrible distraction. You bring your gear with you into work and then you go and meet the lads, or you not bring your gear in, all that sort of stuff. But as sort of semi-professional footballers, you have a duty to do. It's your job really to turn up and be there. Looking back in hindsight, that match should always have been played. But the thing about going up, not going up, going up, not going up, that should never have come into. We should have always been going up, and let the other side look after itself, as in the shenanigans. Who was voting who? That's not our job. Our job is to get on the park and play football.
Yeah, that's.
It does distract.
That squad though, that season, Pierce, the 96-97 squad in the Premier Division, I sensed, certainly as a supporter looking from the outside, that there was a huge togetherness in that bunch of players. That that Charlie kind of put together. Some guys come in last minute, some guys like yourselves, and Noel and John Quigg and guys like that. You had been there the previous season, but there was a huge sense of togetherness. Was it a case of you were trying to prove a point of that this club can do something?
Yeah, but when Dermot came out, Dermot brought up a few lads from Dundalk. He brought up Stephen Kelly.
Yeah.
He brought up Keith Long.
Yeah.
He brought up Matt Britton. These are all lads that had won a league with Dundalk when Dermot was manager of Dundalk. Yeah, and then you had Conor Frawley up, and you had Davy Dowling.
That's right, yeah, from Athlone.
On top of that, now I know the other two boys, Keith Long and Matt Britton, didn't hang around because a lot of the shit was going on, and was Dermot going to be manager. They were signing for Dermot more so than they were signing for Finn Harps.
Right, yeah.
Those two boys. Stephen Kelly was signing for Finn Harps, as I was, as much as Davy Dowling and Conor Frawley. And at that particular time, what a change in the dress room there was, Bartley, from being promoted. You're going into a dress room now with fellas there's about 7 or 8 fellas, they're all 6'2". They're all big men now, and you can see the difference in the dress room and the confidence there. And it was a challenge for those new guys coming in into Finn Harps to go and prove themselves on what they could do. And by all means, there was a huge uplift in the club, because those players ended up staying and playing for Charlie and playing for Finn Harps. So I think that season.
There was an early season game that year when we beat Shelbourne in Talca Park, beat them 2-1, and you had a little altercation with a Mr. Mick Neville, which in itself wasn't remarkable as such, but you got sent off and then you refused to leave the pitch. Do you want to tell me about that?
I do. I think I told you, man. We had the 50-year anniversary of Finn Harps.
You did.
Shelbourne were the FAI Cup holders at that particular time, and for us Finn Harps to go down to play against the FAI Cup holders, it was huge for us to go down and try and compete with them after being in the first division for so long. So to get there and to bring all these players who I mentioned, like Stephen Kelly and Conor Frawley and Davy Dowling and Noel Melvin, it was great to have these, and Speaky was there, and Johnny Quigg. You had experienced lads that knew what it was all about. So it was great to be able to go toe to toe with these guys, rather than turning up and going, oh jeez, we're going to get beaten here. We could stand up to these, and that confidence was there in the dressing room on that particular night. Yeah, and the fact that we went 2-0 up, I think it was.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
That night with Mick Neville, we were probably under the cosh at the time, probably midway through the second half, and a little bit of pressure. I was just basically, I was getting on the ball, and tried to clear. Mick Neville came in, and I elbowed him somewhere, and he went down. And then when he got up, he pushed me in the face face. So I held onto my face as if, oh Jesus, he's after busting my nose, which he didn't, but I held on to him. So that got Mick sent off for pushing me, and I got sent off for raising my elbow. But at the time, referee said 2 red cards, sent us pointed to the dressing room, so off we went. So I was strolling off. Mick just ran off straight away. But as I didn't know at the time, Mick was waiting for me in the dressing room, so he was only for Pat Gallen. Pat Gallen was in the dressing room and had to stop Mick from thumping the head off me. And Mick's a much bigger fella, so that wasn't fair either, Bartley. But anyway, yeah, as I was walking off, the referee, who I'll tell you now, played on, ball out to the left wing. Rutherford, I think is his name. His name was
Mark Rutherford. Yeah, the winger.
Yeah, ran down the line and crossed the ball, and I was still walking off. And it came to me, so I just felt, I have to clear my lines here and get it out. I headed it out, and then all the Shelbourne players, and they all kept on. Referee, he's still on. So I think he brought the play back. He made sure I was off the park, but I don't think he ever refereed another League of Ireland game after that game.
Do you not? Oh, I didn't realise that. That was the time the Talca Park dressing rooms were down the far end of the pitch as well.
Yeah. Is that the time you got married?
Yeah, I got married the next day. I missed the game. I didn't see the game.
Marriage or no marriage? How could you?
Well, you see, I married a good Cavan woman, so I was actually in Cavan that night. But I'll tell you, my wedding breakfast, when I came down the next morning, I was able to read all the newspapers. I was celebrating, I can tell you. Raging, but celebrating as well.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
And believe it or not, that's nearly 25 years ago now, because I've been married 25 years this year.
Oh, right, well, congratulations, well done. Happy days. But you still won't be forgiven for missing that match.
Go way it up, Pierce. You have to let me go some stage. How did the end come for you then at Harps? I mean, obviously we got to the end of that season. You were still a Harps player.
Yeah, we played Sligo Rovers, and I'm going to say we played Sligo Rovers at home probably around November of that season. And we were up near the top of the league at this stage, Bartley. And we drew 1-1 at home to them. So we did. The following week, the fixture was reversed and we were back in Sligo Rovers. But up to that stage, there was 2 lads off Sligo Rovers, English guys that played in the middle of the park. 2 nasty little bastards. So they were, that's all I can call them. So there was a lot of verbals going on during the game, on the pitch and slagging and all that sort of stuff. So the game ended 1-1 for the Parks, but we went back to the showgrounds the following Saturday, and the 2 English guys in the middle, and myself and Quiggy were playing in the middle of the park as well. So it started off from the very first whistle. They came in, the 2 of them came in on the 2 of us and just started getting stuck into us straight away, verbally and physically. Mm-hmm. But after the 25 minutes, we got a throw in, and he threw it to me so I could just volley it on down the line. But your man came in with 2 feet, caught me knee high, and crippled me. Absolutely. He done an awful lot of damage in my knee. So I played on because I was played on till about the 70th minute, and Charlie took me off. I think we were winning 2-0 at the time, and we won that game 2-0 in the showgrounds, and that got us up to second in the league. And I think we were top of the league at that time. So we were all on a buzz sort of thing. But I ended up anyway going back home anyway. But the following 4 or 5 days, I couldn't walk. My leg was just ballooned out, and it was that. So I never really got back. Yeah. But I got back playing for Finn Harps. So I'm gonna say that's November. Guessing that was November. I got back, gave me a game. I worked on my fitness, tried to get back in. Charlie had brought in a few players at this stage, James Mulligan and all these players I think were coming in at that stage. And they were there, and there's a few other lads coming in. There's another 1 or 2 from Derry. So he was building the squad. So I think I started against Bohemians. That was my first game in probably about 4 or 5 months after the injury. And he took me off just before half time. and I knew myself as well. I was hoping maybe get to half time and I handle, in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get to the pace of the game. I wasn't up there at all. So after that, then that season, I think from being second in the heat, we sort of struggled to win a game right through till near the end, where I think Shelbourne came back up to Finn Park and we ended up beating Shelbourne in Finn Park, which secured our status in the Premier League that year.
Yeah.
But that was the end of my thing.
That was the end of your time, and then as we discussed earlier, you went down to play for Alfie Hill in Kilkenny for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, but I was in my head. It was finished in that May. The season was over. Never heard anything from Charlie. Never got a word back from Charlie or anything like that for the following season. And that was it. Yeah, and Alfie Hill then came knocking at my door in September. Up there, obviously struggling for players down in Kilkenny. And they must have been struggling that they were ringing 36-year-old. At that stage, again, I hadn't done a pre-season or anything like that. So I still had a lot of work to do to try and get my fitness up. Partly,
Yeah.
in that league,
In your youth, you also won international honours for the Republic of Ireland. You got schoolboy caps and youth international caps as well. What sort of an experience was that at the time? I mean, you were playing for Home Farm, coming through their academy, and like I think actually Anthony Kiernan, who would have played alongside you in those sides, was Donegal lad and later played for Finn Harps, but obviously was over with Wolves at the time that he would have played with you.
I knew Anthony very well, not just from the Irish international team. Myself and Anthony were over in Wolves at the same time. We used to go over at, let's say, from the age of 15. I played for Raheny Boys Football Club, and that's where I won my schoolboy cap. So we were on trial with the Wolves, and they wanted to sign us, but my parents said not till he's finished his leaving cert, and that was it at the time. But Anthony went over to be an apprentice over there because he had a financial backing to him in the sense that his parents had that fine supermarket chain or whatever they had. So he could easily go over and come back, and my parents insisted I do my education. But for 3 years, Bartley, I went over to Wolves every summer for 2 months, every midterm break from school in October, 2 weeks at Christmas, a week at Easter, and then 2 months again during the summer. So I done that for 3 years. So myself and Anthony became really good friends from the age of 15 up till 18.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's why Anthony was so unlucky not to make it as a big time player, because when he was over there, he was the star at youth level.
Yeah.
Everybody looked at Anthony at youth level. He thought like he was on the white side or whatever of Wolves at the time. Everybody looked towards Anthony, to get the goals and all that. So yeah, smashing player. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, he was very unlucky. It was a knee injury, I think, got him in the end up. And he came back and he was playing in the Ulster Senior League for Letterkenny Rovers. And Harps came along and said, look, you're far too good to be playing there. And if you can play at that level, you can play for us, And he gave us a couple of seasons. But I honestly don't think that he was the same after the knee injury, like he had, I think he got as far as the under-21 side as well for Ireland.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely smashing player. He was a winger stroke number 10 position. He had so much pace about him, and his touch was incredible as well. He was great. Like when I was over with Andy Gray had signed for Wolves, and Emlyn Hughes had signed for Wolves, and Anthony was running rings around these guys. In training you could see it. So it just proves you need an awful lot of luck to make it in the UK. With injuries and all that. But if he had survived, he definitely would have made it. He would have gone on to get senior international caps and everything.
Yeah, no, super player. And a gentleman as well. Nice guy.
Absolutely, yeah. And his family were always, they used to always go to the schoolboy international matches, and that's where I'd meet his family there as well, And they would have travelled over to Wolverhampton, to pop in.
Who would have been the biggest influence on your career, Pierce?
Who are the biggest influence? I'd have to probably throw out Dermot Keady there from my League of Ireland career, because he signed me for he signed me 3 different times. Signed me for Sligo for 3 different clubs. I'm going to say he signed me for Harps,
Yeah.
Sligo Rovers, and Longford Town. So a big influence from Dermot. You know, the way he conducted himself and the way his attitude on the park, just to try and be a winner as much as he could. He probably was a big influence on me now. You know, he knew the highest of respect for him, and unfortunately, he's gone through a sad time now.
It's desperate. It's absolutely desperate. Nobody wants to bury his son, and you know, Alan was quite well known and obviously respected in the footballing family, and from a Finn Harps perspective, he played in our first division winning side in 2004. So, you know, it brings it all home to you very, very quickly that, you know, these things can happen to people, and it's desperate.
Yeah, and the same, of course, with Burrell Noel Melvin. Absolutely, I just devastated to hear both of those lads who I knew. I would have known Alan as a kid, because Dermot would have brought him to football matches with him on the train up to Sligo, and we knew him as a little kid. And I remember he played out in Malahide, which is my area.
Yeah.
There, and I met him out there several times and had loads of bit of crack with him, you know. And the same with Noel. I used to meet Noel Melvin sometimes in Monaghan. It's just unexplainable, and why these two good guys have to leave us, you know.
Yeah, no, I fully understand, and I mean, like as I say, we had that reunion 5 years ago, and I'm only delighted now that Noel was actually in attendance that night, because you know some of you guys hadn't seen each other for a long time after stopping playing, and like it wasn't too long after the reunion that, you know, we got the news on Noel, and that really was shocking news, and no more shocking than Alan's news as well, you know.
Absolutely. And I remember Noel brought his son up to that reunion as well.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, horrific.
Yeah. Here's a good one for you. Who was the best player you ever played against?
Oh, played against. Who's the best player I ever played against? Oh, I'd have to say the one that frustrated me most. Couldn't get near him. It was two really. I'm going to say Paul McGrath. I played against him a couple of times when he played with Pats before I was just entering the League of Ireland.
Yeah.
Before he took off, he was not realising what he was going to achieve. He played against him for Pats. He still sticks out in my head. I remember trying to get near him, couldn't get near him. He was one. And Pat Bourne of Shannon Crowers.
Yeah, Pat was a super player, yeah.
Yeah, they were great players. You just couldn't get the ball off them. You couldn't get close. Felix Healy was there as well. He's in that bracket. Anytime if you get a manager and he said, "Listen, go out and mark Pat Bourne or go out and mark Felix Healy, get tight to him, stick to him." Those two players, I couldn't get near them within 10 yards of them. Every time you got on the ball, how did he get there? They just taught you a lesson. They had me in running around circles most of the time.
And
players, yeah.
Funny when you mention those three players, all three of them got full international honours.
Yeah, Patsy, yeah. Felix for Northern Ireland, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Paul.
And Paul, of course. Felix played in the World Cup in 1982 for Northern Ireland.
All right, yeah, in Spain.
Yeah, as he's very fond of telling you, and he will tell you before the conversation gets too long. Listen.
Great achievement from.
Yeah. Listen, Pierce, I just want to say thanks a million for coming on. I think I've taken up enough of your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll get all the juicy stories now when I stop recording this, will I?
See you later, Bartley. Thanks a million.